Hello and welcome to the Biological Anthropology lecture series. I'm Dr. Richard Jonathan O. Tadurin. Here we explore what it means to be human, biologically, evolutionarily, and behaviorally. Let's begin our journey into the science of humanity. Welcome to Module 4, Primatology. Here we study our closest living relatives, their anatomy, behavior, and evolutionary significance. As we move through this module, I want you to think of primates not as distant creatures in a forest somewhere, but as windows into our own past. Their bones, their teeth, their social lives, even the way they navigate their environments all help us understand how humans became human. Let's revisit why primates matter so much to biological anthropology. Their shared evolutionary history with us means that many traits we consider uniquely human, grasping hands, forward-facing eyes, complex social bonds, have deep roots in primate biology. You might wonder why features like a flexible shoulder joint or a particular molar shape are worth paying attention to. Those small anatomical clues help us reconstruct how early hominins moved, ate, and survived millions of years before written history. As we move into primate diversity and classification, let's look at how different groups adapted to different ecological niches. The wide range of forms you'll see, from lemurs to chimpanzees, reflects millions of years of evolutionary experimentation. And when we examine primate behavior, think about how patterns of cooperation, competition, communication, and even culture emerge in species that share many cognitive foundations with us. By the end of this module, you'll see primates not simply as relatives, but as key pieces of evidence in the story of human evolution. In this section, we explore the defining traits of primates and how their adaptations shed light on our own evolution. When we talk about primates, we're talking about a remarkably diverse order of mammals that share a common evolutionary story, one that ultimately includes us. Let's revisit the basic question: what makes a primate a primate? The answer isn't a single trait, but a constellation of tendencies that evolved over millions of years, mainly in response to life in complex, tree-filled environments. If you imagine moving through a forest canopy, balancing on branches, reaching for fruit, keeping track of predators, you begin to understand why primates look and behave the way they do. Let's look at one of the most important themes: arboreal adaptation. Primates have bodies built for navigating three-dimensional space. Their skeletons are generalized rather than specialized, meaning the same limb can help them climb, grasp, leap, or walk depending on the situation. A flexible shoulder joint allows wide ranges of motion, and grasping hands and feet, complete with nails instead of claws, provide stability and precision. You might wonder why nails matter. Nails allow broader, more sensitive pads on the fingers, which improves touch, crucial when you're trying to judge whether a branch is sturdy or a piece of fruit is ripe. This sensitivity, by the way, is something humans retain even though our lifestyles change dramatically. Primates rely heavily on vision. Forward-facing eyes, overlapping fields of view, and depth perception give them an advantage in judging distances during movement. Combined with a post-orbital bar or fully enclosed eye orbit in more derived primates, this visual emphasis marks a shift away from the stronger reliance on smell that characterizes many other mammals. If you've ever watched a cat navigate at night using whiskers and scent, contrast that with a monkey leaping from branch to branch in daylight, you'll see two very different evolutionary priorities. Primates traded some olfactory sensitivity for visual acuity, and that shift continues into the human lineage. Alongside vision, touch becomes another crucial sensory tool. Enlarged fingertips with dense nerve endings allow primates to explore their environment in fine detail. Think about the way you instinctively reach out to test the surface of something unfamiliar. That behavior reflects a long evolutionary history in which tactile feedback helped primates make quick, accurate decisions in unstable environments. Another major theme is dietary flexibility. Primates are not locked into a single kind of food. Their teeth and digestive strategies allow them to exploit fruits, leaves, insects, gums, and even small animals, depending on what's available. This dietary plasticity protects them from ecological fluctuations. If one food source becomes scarce, they can shift to another. The form of their teeth, incisors for cutting, canines for puncturing, premolars and molars for grinding, mirrors this flexibility. These patterns are beautifully preserved in the fossil record, and they help us reconstruct the diets of extinct species. Let's consider parental investment as well. Primates tend to have fewer offspring, but they devote more time and energy to raising them. Longer developmental periods mean more learning, more social interaction, and more opportunities for young primates to acquire skills necessary for survival. This extended childhood also lays the groundwork for the complex social behaviors we associate with primate groups. You might wonder why primates invest so much. The answer lies in the cognitive demands of their environments. Navigating social hierarchies, coordinating movement, remembering food locations, all of these require time to learn. As we bring these ideas together, notice how each trait reinforces the others. Vision supports arboreal locomotion. Touch refines grasping. Flexible diets reduce ecological risk. Slow development supports learning in social groups. The order Primates is best understood not as a list of features, but as an interconnected suite of adaptations shaped by evolutionary pressures. By understanding these tendencies, we begin to see how early primates, and eventually hominins, thrived in dynamic environments. And as you reflect on your own hands, your depth perception, or your long childhood, remember, these aren't just human traits. They are primate legacies woven into our biology. Let's revisit why teeth are such powerful tools in primate biology. Teeth preserve well in the fossil record, they record an animal's diet, and they reflect the ecological pressures that shaped a species over time. When we look at primate teeth, we're not just seeing chewing surfaces. We're seeing a map of evolutionary choices. Every cusp, every ridge, every difference in size tells us something about how that primate lived. Let's look at the dental formula you often encounter in primate studies. For humans and Old World monkeys, it's 2, 1, 2, 3. That sequence describes the number of incisors, canines, premolars, and molars on one side of the jaw. The formula stays the same, but the shape and function of those teeth can vary dramatically. Incisors tend to be broad and useful for cutting into fruits. Canines can signal social competition as much as feeding behavior. Think of the large canines in some monkey species. Premolars and molars do much of the grinding, and their patterns reveal whether the animal is crushing insects, slicing leaves, or mashing fruit. You might wonder why diet shapes teeth so strongly. Imagine the difference between biting into a soft mango versus processing tough foliage. A leaf-eating primate needs molars with sharp shearing crests to break down fibrous plant material. Insectivores rely on pointed cusps for puncturing. Fruit eaters benefit from flatter surfaces that can handle a range of textures. These distinctions are not just convenient labels. They reflect millions of years of evolutionary fine-tuning. Think about this as you examine primate skulls. The jaw musculature, the robustness of the mandible, the enamel thickness, these features all reinforce dietary specialization. Even within the same species, seasonal shifts in food availability can influence tooth use and wear. Understanding these patterns helps us reconstruct ancient environments and understand how primates navigated them. Now, this becomes especially meaningful when we apply it to early hominins. Because their teeth are often the best preserved fossils, dental evidence becomes a primary window into their adaptations. By comparing tooth shape and wear between living primates and fossil species, we can infer whether early hominins relied more on fruits, leaves, or harder, more abrasive foods. So, as we continue exploring primate biology, keep the teeth in mind, not just as anatomical features, but as evolutionary narratives. They remind us that survival is, in many ways, a story of what an animal can eat and how well it can adapt when the menu changes. Let's revisit why primates hold such a central place in biological anthropology. When we study primates, we're not just adding trivia about exotic animals. We're examining living models that help us interpret our own evolutionary pathway. Their anatomy, their behavior, and the environments they navigate offer clues about the selective pressures that shaped early hominins long before our lineage walked upright or made stone tools. You might wonder why observing a lemur or a chimpanzee can tell us anything meaningful about human evolution. Primates share a deep evolutionary history with us, and that shared history means we inherit many of the same underlying biological patterns. Let's look at anatomy first. Primates' skeletal structures, modes of locomotion, and sensory systems help us reconstruct how early hominins might have moved and perceived their surroundings. For example, understanding how a gibbon brachiates or how an old world monkey climbs tells us something about the range of locomotor strategies available to our ancestors. These comparisons help clarify which traits are ancient and which are unique to the human lineage. But anatomy alone doesn't tell the whole story. Primate behavior offers an equally rich set of insights. When we examine how primates form social bonds, resolve conflicts, or care for their young, we gain a clearer sense of the kinds of social environments early humans might have inhabited. Think about grooming, for instance. It's not just about hygiene. It's a form of social currency, a way of maintaining alliances and reducing tension within a group. Understanding these dynamics helps us think about the foundations of human cooperation. You might also consider communication. Primate vocalizations, gestures, and facial expressions provide valuable comparisons for understanding the precursors of human language and symbolic behavior. Playback experiments, where researchers test how primates respond to specific calls, reveal that some species interpret sounds in contextually meaningful ways, an ability that speaks to the cognitive roots of our own communication systems. Finally, primate studies guide how we interpret the fossil record. Fossils rarely tell us everything. Bones alone can't show us social behavior, parental strategies, or daily movement patterns. But living primates fill in those gaps by showing us how anatomy relates to real-world behavior. In this way, they become essential tools for building accurate reconstructions of early hominin life. So as you continue through this module, think of primates as living companions to the fossil record, species that help illuminate both where we came from and why our bodies and behaviors evolved the way they did. As we wrap up this section, let's revisit the bigger picture behind everything we've discussed. When we look at primates, their flexible skeletons, their keen vision, their sensitive fingertips, and even the structure of their teeth, we're really looking at the evolutionary toolkit that allowed this group to thrive in complex, ever-changing environments. You might wonder why these details matter so much. Now, this part is important. These same adaptations form the biological backdrop against which human evolution unfolded. Understanding primates helps us understand ourselves. Think about the way a primate navigates through branches, or how it pauses to inspect a piece of fruit before taking a bite. Those behaviors are enabled by anatomical features that humans still carry today, even though our environments and lifestyles have changed dramatically. Let's look at this as a kind of deep-time inheritance. Our precision grip, our depth perception, our reliance on touch, these are not recent innovations, but ancient solutions that shape the possibilities for later hominins. As we move forward, keep in mind that primate adaptations don't exist in isolation. Diet interacts with locomotion, sensory systems interact with social behavior, and all of these traits reflect pressures that acted over millions of years. By studying primates, we gain a clearer sense of the constraints and opportunities early humans faced. So as you transition into the next section on primate diversity, carry this foundation with you. These adaptations are the starting point for understanding how primates, and eventually hominins, came to occupy such varied and fascinating ecological roles. Thank you for joining this lecture. I'm Dr. Richard Jonathan O. Tadurin. I hope this session deepened your understanding of biological anthropology. Keep exploring what it means to be human. See you soon.